York's classic rock. Q104.3.
World famous photographer Lynn Goldsmith is with us this morning here at Q104.3.
Our friend.
Her show, yeah, but she is world famous.
Yes, she is.
She is world famous. Her show, The Streets of New York City, the photography of Lynn Goldsmith, is at the Morrison Hotel Gallery on Prince Street in Soho through May 6th. Now, I've seen the show, and there are some pretty remarkable photographs. You've captured some very special moments, Lynn.
Well, thank you. I mean, the fact that I carry a camera with me pretty much everywhere I go, including here, allows me to hopefully be able to catch those moments. But I've been really fortunate in regards to the images in this show, because what would happen is either before a shoot so that I could get to know the person better, or after the shoot when I did know them, we would take a walk either around my neighborhood or some part of New York, and I would be able to make images of them on the streets, as I always felt that New York itself, is the biggest star that I know. So if you're going to put two stars together, you might as well put it with the biggest one, and that's New York City.
And you captured images of New York City that only exist in people's memories or on film.
Yes, that's true. And in some of them mine. One of the images in the show that I always look at and giggle about is one I made in 1973 on 6th Avenue with John Denver. And just the way that he looks and what New York is are like direct opposites. He just looked so out of place there. And I will never forget what he said to me at that moment. He was looking up at the buildings and he said, "You live in a concrete jungle." And I had never thought of the buildings on 6th Avenue, around Rockefeller Plaza, around Radio City Music Hall, as what he called mountains of concrete and steel. And now, every time, since 1973, when I ride my bike up 6th Avenue, I kind of think of them in that way, as mountains of concrete and steel.
Then there were people who felt very much at home here in the city, like the Beastie Boys. And you have a photo from St. Mark's Place at the Stromboli Pizzeria.
Stromboli Pizza. Now, if you knew anything about New York pizza, that was the place to go. And we'd been shooting all day and I was really hungry. So I thought, and generally when you have a photo shoot, you're responsible for paying for the food. So Stromboli Pizza was the cheapest and the best place to go to. And they thought that I had picked, just the perfect place. So I was, I was really fortunate that that after we ate, they would come out on the street and we could play some more because we'd had a long day shooting.
Isn't it still there? Because I was just there the other night, in the middle of the night, and it was open and people were having pizza.
I think the sign has changed.
And the neighborhood has changed a lot since
Oh
1987.
my God, yes.
I mean, it is very, very gentrified right now. Well, you were dealing with a lot of very, very famous people, and it was, I would imagine, an unconventional request for you to make after doing a photo shoot to ask your subjects to go out on the street and shoot some more.
Well, I always feel that a good portrait photographer needs to know how to immediately become someone's new best friend. And once you establish that with someone, you want to hang out with them. And so it's actually quite easy and it's fun. And sometimes in order to establish that relationship, I knew because I'm somewhat intuitive that it would be hard to do for them to walk into a cold studio and to have that happen. So
it's not intimate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and that's what your photos are intimate.
Well, thank you. I would like to think that they're that way because I feel my job is that the viewer who in all likelihood is a fan, that the viewer wants to feel closer to these people, especially if the person I'm photographing is a musician, unlike an actor or whatever, because music has such a profound effect on so many people's lives, either as a healing, a connection to a time that was really good in their lives. And so because of that, I feel I have a responsibility when I photograph musicians to make them feel like the viewer's best friend, to make them feel like that's a person that they can identify the kind of music that comes out of them, and that therefore it's more genuine, it's more authentic. But often it's not.
Well, there are a lot of photographs in the exhibit at the Morrison Hotel Gallery, but let's just go through a few. Just describe them. Describe what it was like. Just tell us a story about Talking Heads.
Talking Heads. Well, what was great about Talking Heads was that all of them, Jerry Harrison had been studying to be an architect, and the other three had been in art school. So all of them were open to doing anything as a collaboration. And we walked around the West Side, and I found some graphic of the highway above them. And it's pretty much that, where we were into finding together spaces in the city that kind of reflected the aesthetic of what Talking Heads is. I mean, you could have done them, backstage at CBGB's during that time, because that was such a great location. But that's not really what Talking Heads isn't that simple. It's not as easy as like a Clash photograph. For me, I really want to show that these people are artists themselves in the visual world.
The Police.
Oh.
They were young and liked each other at the time.
Oh, well, yes.
Well,
actually, what happened with the Police is fascinating. I mean, I photographed them for a number of years, and the first time that I photographed them, it was because I got a call, and Jim, you're going to love this story. I got a call from Miles Copeland. I had once been the co-manager of Grand Funk Railroad, and there was a band called Climax Blues Band that Miles managed, which opened for Grand Funk. Mm-hmm. And Miles had asked if he could borrow our lights. So Miles was very familiar with the kind of work that I did to help Grand Funk toward their success. Now, a record had been released, which was his brother's band, Stuart Copeland. This is what he called me up and told me, by A&M Records. It was a single in the States, and it had flopped. And A&M, the record label, was going to drop this band. Could I do something? Would I take some pictures, get some press, so that he could go into A&M and make them feel like, no, we got to do more here for this group, right? So I said, sure, but I didn't really want to spend my money on a studio session. So I told them to meet me like on West 46th Street by this barber store. And Miles had said to me, they're all really very handsome. I'd never met Stuart, okay? They're all really very handsome. They're all blonde. I'm like, yawn, blonde. Sorry, Jim. But anyway, so I meet them in front of this barber shop, and Sting has glasses on like Harry Potter. I mean, I really think that whoever wrote Harry Potter in Rawlings must have seen my Police photo when they designed what this kid was going to look like in his glasses. And I said, hey, lose the glasses. And we went walking around New York, and they were so smart and they were so great that I said, yes, I'll do a studio shoot. But I got those pictures into Rolling Stone and into other places, and A&M re-released that single. That single was Roxanne.
Okay, good.
Wow, so you are responsible for the Police's success.
Okay, the Ramones.
Oh, the Ramones, I didn't really get to know the Ramones that well. Joey was really shy, and mostly it was me being around them because I was friends with Patti Smith and other people, and we would go over there or we'd go to a show. Patti and I would go see the Ramones together. So it wasn't even about shooting them necessarily. I loved their energy, and they were really sincere and seemed to be real kind of New York, Jersey guys, which for me, being a native Detroiter, feels very much at home. So when I was covering what was actually a protest, I think it was a protest, it was a march, and I saw Allen Ginsberg, who I knew, there with Joey Ramone. I just went, hi, and grabbed this picture of Joey and Allen Ginsberg.
It's really a unique perspective. I mean, because you don't imagine a photo of Joey Ramone and Allen Ginsberg.
Well, of course.
And yet they
just
belong
don't.
together.
And yet they did. That's what makes the picture so special. You know, I mean, the beat and the punk together in the picture, and it really, really worked. But the idea to put it together, you know, just that was amazing.
Allen Ginsberg was a punk. You know, I mean, when you think about what the Beats were, those were punks.
But they weren't called punks then.
No. And it was a different sort of, it was a softer presentation, you know.
Bruce
Springsteen. Yes, of course I walk the streets with him because we both walk, although I wanted him to ride a bike with me since I ride a bike everywhere, but some people don't feel safe doing that. So I think it's pretty well documented that I had a relationship with Bruce as boyfriend and girlfriend. So many of those pictures were taken just because I always take pictures, and we would go for walks.
Yeah, but the picture, a picture that I saw in the show, almost had a family scrapbook quality to it. It looked like something that you would find, and you know, if you were in someone's home and they said, "Oh, I just took a picture of so and so," you know, it just seemed so intimate, and it must have been because you were so close.
Probably. I mean, you know, it's the same thing as me photographing my sister, my mother, my whatever, and that's why the same thing is true for my photographs of Patti Smith and a few other people who are, you know, really, for me, close friends, people you know and people you would want to know.
Right, but what's the difference when the subject is someone that you know really, really well? Or is there no difference at all with your artistic eye?
There's a big difference in that when I know someone really well, like, for example, Patti, there's a photograph of her sitting on this bench on Fifth Avenue, right where the entrance to Central Park is. And there are all these Iranian protesters. I think it's 1976, with bags over their heads. This protest was going on, and I lived near there, so I called up Patti, and I said, "Get over here. There's all these Iranian protesters with bags on their heads," you know, and you know, she puts on her Free Keith t-shirt, and we can do the picture in like 2 seconds. So part of the joy of working with someone who's your friend, muse, whatever, is you can do things really quickly and they trust you, and there's no question of what you're doing. So the fact that you're not questioned, what is this? Where's it going? What are you doing? Allows a lot of freedom. The other thing is that for me, when I look at those pictures of people who were very significant in my life or are significant in my life, the photographs are more meaningful for me. When people ask me about what's my favorite image I've ever made, you know, it's very difficult to answer because I think about the person first, you know, and it's always people who I find as friends inspired me, comforted me, and who I felt like I could do the same for them.
Lynn Goldsmith with us at Q104.3, your two books.
Oh, well, I have a few books, but
Yeah, but
my
I mean,
latest book is Rock and Roll Stories.
Which is great.
Thank you. And that's a lot of stories about behind these pictures and how I got to be whoever it is that I am, and hopefully still will become. And the other one is called Rock and Roll. And then I have some other books. But I have more photographs of on the streets of New York. And I have a lot of images, not only mine, but other people's on a site that I have called rockandrollphotogallery.com. So
Okay, and the exhibit at the Morrison Hotel Gallery continues through May 6th. It's called Streets of NYC. Of course, it doesn't cost anything to walk in and look around and enjoy this beautiful photographic artwork in person, and it's always great to see you.
Always.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been fantastic. You can also see them online if you can't be in New York City.
Just go to
www.rockandrollphotogallery.com.